Vivian slowly opened her eyes and looked at the wall before her, reflecting the light of sun from the window. At first, she was confused, but then she realized she wasn't home anymore. She remembered what had happened the previous night. So she spent half of her life loving someone who hated her. Had I known about this before, then I would never fall for you because I rather be heartless than heartbroken. But why you did? And look what you did. She didn't want to move from the sofa, but she realized that just lying around won't solve any problem. Maybe if she acts nice, Kirito would eventually fall for her. Like in those romantic movies, she got up and rubbed her eyes. She stretched her arms and yawned. Kirito had left for office already. The entire room was the size of her house. At least she got the money, if not a good man. She decided to explore the house and walked out of the room in her pajamas. So it wasn't hotel but actually the Hiomi's house, family house. But it resembled a five-star hotel. She felt rich just by breathing the air around her. As she walked, the hall began to widen until they formed a huge cubicle with a swimming pool in between. It reminded her of her home. The lake where she and Betty used to bath looked just like this. Believing that she was the only one there, she removed her pajamas and jumped into the pool. She thought how nice it would be if pajama was there, or like without it. And she started to think if Betty was there, it would be very much excellent. She was just floating on the water when suddenly something huge fell inside the swimming pool from height, splashing the all water side. Tsunami! She shouted as she splashed water towards the person. It was a young man who, too, wasn't expecting to find someone at pool. When she stopped splashing the water, they looked at each other. The guy had brown hair and black eyes, and he did a double take as he looked at Vivian. What? Never looked a girl in an expensive swimming pool. I know I'm rich. Vivian found it in German and did a fake laugh to emphasize her sophistications while floating half naked inside a pool that didn't even belong to her. Well, not completely. What? The guy said in Japanese. You see, naturally he was confused since he wasn't used to greeting guests in the pool. Who are you and how did you get in here? Vivian realized that he didn't know German and decided to play it along. What? She said in German. If you don't want me to call police, get out of here. Excuse me, he said in English. You are at wrong place, huh? Excuse me, but get out, he shouted in Japanese. How dare you to order me around in my own house, you peasant? She slapped him on his head. He had triggered him, but attacking his pride as man. She was so unlikable by him. Freak, he pulled her hair. Who do you think you are? She looked angrily into his eyes and splashed water into them. He left her hair immediately and rubbed his eyes. She ran into the water out of panic. He is a rapist, she shouted. He held her feet and pulled her towards him. Come here, you little shit, he shouted. She turned towards him. His eyes were red with anger. Ah, ugly, she shouted as she kicked his face with her another legs. But he held her ankle and she fell into the water with him still holding her legs. She shrieked as she frantically lashed her hands on the surface of water. What a moron! What's going on here? Mrs. Hiomi asked as she stood in front of them. Mom, how the hell did this woman got inside the pool? Mother-in-law, Vivian shouted. Eh? He was shocked and left her feet immediately. She fell and got up again. Oh my Vivian, what happened? Mrs. Hiomi asked as Vivian walked out of the pool in her lingerie. Wait, she's brother's wife? He cursed me, Vivian shouted. What the fuck? Awe, we should talk. Fuck no. Mrs. Hiomi decided to take the both of them. Mr. Hiomi and tell him about incident. He laughed his guts out. What is this, Dad? She looks nothing like when I saw her on the wedding day. Plus, she's flasher. The guy shouted. I'm not. I didn't think anyone would be there. If you know Japanese, can't you just speak, Dad? He shouted. You're fun to irritate. Go die. Maybe it was makeup. So why don't you say hi to each other? Aoi Hiomi, your brother-in-law. Hello, I'm Vivian. Yeah, whatever. He's short-tempered but cute. Vivian smiled. How old are you? Vivian asked. 20. I got a cute little brother. Vivian patted his head, but he moved away. Don't touch me. Aoi helped her unpack and adjust her stuffs. In the evening, Vivian decided to cook something for Kirito. She had a plan to test something out. Around 8 in the evening, Kirito returned back home. Vivian had learned that it was called an apartment, not a room. And it was their new home. A king-size bed occupied the center of room with television in front of bed and sofa on its right corner. I'm back. Kirito removed his tie. Kirito-chan, see, I made something for you, Vivian shouted as she brought a black mass in front of Kirito. What is that? Coal? Creeps. This doesn't looks like creeps at all. But it tastes like them. You don't have to tell me if it's edible. I can see very well how edible it is. Either way, I'm not hungry. You're saying no to food? Dog food. But dogs are cute. Vivian looked at the blonde black mask. Why am I even having conversation with you? Kirito lay on the bed. No dinner? We are supposed to go to the party tonight. Kirito looked at the ceiling above him. A party? There must be like a lot of people there, right? And beer and... It's not a German village gathering. Kirito got up from the bed and looked into her eyes. It's a place where only businessmen and sophisticated selections of society is to be. Rich people, Vivian asked. Very rich. Richer than us too. What we have is enough, Vivian smiled. Kirito looked into her eyes and passed right through her. You have 15 minutes. Get ready. Kirito waited in the balcony looking into his phone when Vivian suddenly knocked at the window. He turned back and examined her outfit. She was dressed up in a yellow long frock with a light brown boots. Trash, he said instantly. What? Kirito pressed his temples. Vivian looked at him. Never mind, let's not go. But why? Why? Look at you. You are such an embarrassment. It feels so awkward to carry a country girl around. It's embarrassing. Vivian looked at him for a while and pressed her rings on her chest. But I'm your wife. Yeah, and that's my fault now. Everything is my fault. Look, how bad am I? And you are the good one. You never do anything wrong. You cannot hate your wife. Vivian held his hand. We are married. Kirito slapped her hand and pushed her away. I shouldn't, but I can't help it. I need to feel nothing, nothing for anyone. Not you, not my parents. Just work. Because you can't give me what I want. What you want? I want to be free. What does that mean? I don't know. And it's too late anyway. It's never too late, Kirito. Oh, yeah, sounds good to hear. Then, can you undo our marriage and my vows to you? He shouted. You never raise your voice, she whispered as she moved towards him. Can't you understand? We don't click and we will never. He stood before her and looked away while she looked at him. But I want to click together. You will only hurt me. It's like you exist to hurt me. I'm sorry. I didn't want it to hurt you. I just want to be with you and that hurts me so much. So should I just go away? I'm afraid it's not possible anymore. My parents won't let me file you a divorce. But it's your life. You should control it, not them. He looked at her and shook his head. He walked out from the apartment and slammed the door. Vivian sat on the floor crying to herself. She knew she loved him and that made her sad because she would rather die than hurt the person she loved. Kirito walked towards his car, unlocked the door. He sat inside and looked ahead. He pressed his head on the steering wheel and closed his eye. She didn't know anything. He looked aside and looked at his reflection in the mirror of window side. And how is that her fault? He heard a voice inside his head. He got up and walked out the war. Vivian had washed her face and was ready to change when Kirito suddenly opened the door. Kirito, you must bring Vivian along. Mr. Hiomi's words into his head. She looked at him. Kirito, let's first get you proper dress. He grabbed her waist and dragged her to the car. Where are we going? Vivian asked. To the mall. I'll be getting something decent for you to wear. They said inside the car. Kirito, can you drive car? Vivian asked. Put on the seat belt. How do we put it? Are you serious? Kirito got off from his seat and kept his knee between Vivian's thighs. He locked the seat belt while Vivian looked at him. That's a sexual harassment, she said. Makes no sense, but okay. Kirito sat back on his seat and looked ahead. They stopped in front of mall and people came running towards their car. They all greeted them as they came out of his car. Vivian looked around, mesmerized by everything she saw. The entire staff of the mall was lined up and everyone bowed as they passed through. Vivian just stared at them in happy and then bowed to them. You are not supposed to do that, you idiot. Kirita grabbed her arms and pulled her away. They picked up the black dress for her and decided to directly go to the party venue from there. The lady at the cosmetic store did a good makeup job on the Vivian's face. When they reached the party, Vivian stepped out of the car and fell off the ground. Kirito ignored her and walked towards the party lawn. She held the heels in her hand and ran behind him. She lost Kirito in the crowd and searched for him, everyone staring at her as she stood awkwardly in the middle of this small group of people. A waiter walked towards her with a tray in his hand. He various drink in that tray. Ma'am, would you like a drink? He asked. Vivian kept her heel aside and took the tray from him. She didn't know she was supposed to puke on one. The waiter stared at her and quietly walked away. It was nothing like the parties they had in Germany. Instead of quack cosmetic or like country music, it was classical music everywhere, and everyone was so dressed up. Everything looked very intimidating and very, very formal. She immediately thought of all those stereotypical British people she had immediately heard and she had heard of it in German, how they love rules and orders. It was not party, it was just random collections of people with a old type of taste of music. Classical music was good, but only when it was heard at special occasions like date or a wedding. A party was not included into the Vivian's list of special day. She sat on the tables, staring at the people while drinking the whiskey. She was alone, but not for a very long.